Hi everybody, Bearded Rogue here, and in today's Vlogust, we're going to cover something that apparently people are not tired of me talking about yet, and that is Ex Libris. I've talked about this a whole bunch. I talked about it in my Gen Con Hall video. I've talked about it in various other places online. This video is not going to be an instructional. I'm not going to teach you how to play the game. I'm not going to go through all of the instructions or anything like that. If you want to see that, you can. I actually did a live stream with the One Tar earlier this week, and in that I go through all of the rules the exact same way I would do a demo in the Renegade booth at Gen Con. So if you want to learn how to play the game, I will link that stream in this video. It won't be up the day that I post this, because I'm posting this before her streams go live. They usually go live like a week after they're done. But I will make sure that I come back and put the link in the video, so if you watch this later on, the link will be there if you want to know a little bit more about how to play the game. So I'm not going to cover how to play the game. And this is not a review. I will just come right out and say I unabashedly love this game. I love nearly everything about this game. It is a fantastic game. I played it with the designer, Adam McIver, at Origins. I sought it out because it's a library game. I love libraries. Fun fact, I actually skipped high school and went to the public library. And that's partially because I love libraries and love reading, and also because truancy officers do not look for students in the library. That's an interesting thing. But enough about my larcenous background. Let's get to the game and what this video will be about. So this video is going to be about what is clever in Ex Libris, because this is a game that is dripping with clever. It oozes clever. It's brilliant. The designer, Adam McIver, the artist, Jackie Davis, Renegade the publisher, Dustin Schwartz, who went through the rulebook, and a whole host of other people who were involved, did an amazing job creating a very clever game, and the cleverness is in almost every component of the game. So I'm going to go through all of them, why it's clever, and all of you guys, if you watch this, Scott, Sarah, Adam, Jackie, Dustin, anybody else who was involved with it, if you guys watch it and know that this was something that was your idea or that you came up with or that you implemented, feel free to go ahead and take credit for that, or you know, fight amongst yourselves for credit for it. Just understand that I think you are all absolute freaking geniuses, and you did a fantastic job with this game. So let's go into what's clever about Ex Libris. So the first thing that's clever is the box. You say, it's a box. Well, one side is the spine of a book. The other three sides are actually the pages of that book viewed from different angles, including things stuck in the pages and bookmark in the book. And it sits on your shelf and looks like a book on your shelf. It does lay horizontal just fine, and all of the horizontal views are fine to look at, but this is one that really shines standing up, and it's just one of those little clever details of making the box look like a book that I think is brilliant. More boxes that look like books, please. More library games, too, for that matter, but yeah. Amazing idea there to make the actual box look like a book. Enough about the box. Let's look at what's inside the box that is so brilliant. So, one of the things inside a strategy game, even a medium weight Euro-y type strategy game like Ex Libris, is keeping in mind how you win the game. It's a lot of rules explanations, and a lot of people who know a lot about rules explanations, the first thing they know to do is tell you, how do you win the game? What's the point? What's the purpose? What are all of the actions that you're taking moving towards? So what Ex Libris did is it unabashedly put them on the main board. Never during Ex Libris are you going to have to go, what am I supposed to be doing again? What scores me points? How do I win the game? Because everything that scores you points is listed right here on the main board for you to look at any time while you're playing it. And they all make thematic sense. So, thematically, you are a rare book collector who is vying for the title of Chief Librarian. It's a brand new position the mayor just created. You want it because it comes with power, it comes with money, and it comes with the opportunity to get more rare books, which is what all of us are really after. That being said, in order to determine who it is that's going to be the chief librarian, they're going to look at your library and judge it on all of the categories on this main board. All of these categories are how you score points. So thematically, they're all tied to running a library. So the first one is alphabetization, which is a really hard word to say fast, apparently. Alphabetization. So you want all your books in alphabetical order. So you want your A's in your top left corner. You want your Z's in your bottom right corner. You want your library to be alphabetized so people can find it easily. That makes perfect thematic sense. Who wants a librarian who cannot put books where they're supposed to go or where people can find them? And when we get to the library cards, the actual shelf cards, it'll make more sense why you do it this way, but it's just one of those things. Like anything that isn't in alphabetical order, we just flip it over and it'll be a blank shelf for the scoring round of the game. So put your books in order, because you're a librarian, damn it. Next is shelf stability. Nobody wants to go to a library where the shelves could fall over and kill you. That's just bad policy. So you want to build the biggest, sturdiest squares or rectangles you possibly can, and that will score you more points in the shelf stability. The bigger and squarier, or rectangularier, now I'm making up words, your library is, the more points you'll score. You'll score one per card in your library, even the ones that are face down and are empty shelves, because they're still shelves and they still make your bookcase stable. But you want a big square or rectangle. How do people shelve books? Big squares or rectangles. Make big shelves. Make them in alphabetical order. Next, we get to one of my favorite components of the game, and we're going to use two of them right now. I'll talk more about these in a minute, but just understand that you use two of them on the main board. So the first thing is prominent works. So in our city, we particularly care about fantastical fictions, these green books. So everybody everybody at the table, every librarian wants to have as many of these green books as you possibly can. The more green books you have, the more points you score at the end. It's scored by majority, so everybody's fighting over green books in this particular game. The other card is used for the banned books. These are books that nobody wants. In this case, it's purple spells and potions for this game. All of them will be -1 point at the end of the game, so you are all trying to have the fewest of these. So both of these are out there. Next is categorical variety. Everybody needs to be able to read a little bit of everything, except for banned books. We ignore banned books when it comes to this. But it means that you basically want to try to have your library as balanced as possible. We'll look at your library, and whatever category of books you have the fewest of, other than the banned books, we'll give you 3 points for each of those books. 3 points for each of those books at the end of the game. So you want to kind of keep them all together in a large grouping so you get more points. Last but not least is the library focus. And I said we'd get back to these cards. And these cards are probably one of my favorite components in the game. They may be my favorite component, because they do a lot of work in the game. There are 6 of them. Completely 6. 1 for each category of book. 2 of them are used on the main board. The rest of them will be dealt out to the players at the beginning of the game. This is their secret library focus. Each player has one. So in a 4-player game, everybody will have one, and 2 of them will be on the board, meaning all 6 cards are in use. This is important for a couple of reasons. 1, whatever yours is, you'll score 2 points for that color of book at the end of the game. Nobody else will. So you want books of that color in your library. In addition, you know that if you have this, nobody else has this color. You're not directly competing with anybody else for historic volumes if yellow is your library focus. You also know that none of the other people around the table are using green or purple, because they're your prominent works and your banned books. So you have 3 pieces of information immediately, as that's half of the possible categories in the game that you know are either prominent works that everybody's fighting over, banned books that nobody wants, or yellow books that you specifically want. And nobody's directly competing. All of the cards being used in the game means that over time you'll be able to kind of deduce what people are going for. And while there's not a lot of hate drafting in the game, like I've never specifically chosen something just so that I could keep it away from someone else, if there are 2 shelf cards that are out there and both of them are kind of mediocre for me, I will choose I have the option to choose based on which one is better for my opponent and keeping it away from him. I could potentially figure out what it is that you want and make sure that all of these shelves that have your particular library focus, let's say yellow, also are packed with purples. Anything that's yellow and purple I leave on the table. Anything that's yellow and not purple I take. So you're taking some banned books with your focus books. It may still be worth it to you. These are 2 points and these are only -1 point, but any negative points that I can help give you is great. It's just another decision matrix that you can add to the game. But I haven't even gotten to the most clever part of this component. So we've covered deduction, we've covered secret goal, but the most clever part of this specific set of components is their back. So the back is actually dual-ended. You can see it's symmetrical, mirrored on either side. Everybody has a player board. These are also really clever. But these get tucked under the player board after you look at them, and now you have a listing of all 6 categories of book that are in the game. You don't have to ask. It doesn't list their names. All of their names are a little bit longer, but forever from that point forward, you can refer to them as skulls, quills, hourglasses, monster mouths, magnifying glasses, and wands, or you can say black, green, yellow, red, blue, and purple. And everybody will know what you're talking about because they have a reference card right there. This is something that could have been built onto the player board, but it's so convenient to just have it on the back of this, what would otherwise be a dead card, because you don't look at the front of the card except at the very beginning of the game and at the very end of the game. So it's a way to use the entirety of these 6 cards to not only give you secret goals and to give you a bit of a deductive element into the game, it also gives you a reference that's helpful throughout the game. Genius. Like, absolute genius use of components. Speaking of genius use of components, your player board is also pretty ingenious. Very, very clever. So first of all, they're double-sided. We'll get into what this side is in a minute, but let's talk about the basic side. So there are 2 ways to play the game, Ex Libris. A basic way and an advanced way. The basic way, all of the player boards are identical. They have a certain number of important pieces to them. They have 3 spots for your workers, your little gnomes. They tell you what you can do on this player board. Every player board allows you to place a worker on it to either draw a card or to shelve a card. This is very important because those are the 2 primary actions you want to do in the game. Acquire cards and then put them into your tableau so they score you points. So even if the locations that are out on the board aren't to your liking, you have 3 spots that you can place your 3 workers that will advance your cause. They may not be as flashy as some of the other locations, but you'll never be going, oh, I guess I'll just put them there to end the round, because you have some place that forwards your agenda no matter what, always in front of you. Genius. The other genius thing, and this is something that people who aren't good at alphabetization or saying the word will appreciate, is that this little ribbon, this little bookmark here, shows not only all of the letters of the alphabet in order, it also shows how many cards make up each letter in the game. So you can look at your shelf and immediately go, okay, so I have S1 of 10 and I have S4 of 10. There are 10 S books. How many are in between what I have? And then comparing that S to that, U that I also have, how many books can I shelve between them? Well, let me get a good idea to see whether I want to shelve these farther apart or closer together, because maybe there's not that many books between S10 and U1. How many books does T have? Oh, well, T has 10 as well. Maybe I want to leave some space. Those kinds of decisions can be made because this exists. It also means you don't have to sing the ABC song to yourself over and over again while you play in order to alphabetize. You can just look at this handy-dandy little ribbon, and you've got a reference right there that tells you the order that the alphabet goes in. So you don't need to use any mnemonics to remember it, or have been somebody who alphabetizes a lot of things. Really convenient, really ingenious, and that's just the basic side of the board. Then we have the advanced side of the board. So let me tell you a little bit about the difference between the basic version of the game and the advanced version of the game. There's one major difference. The basic version of the game, everybody has the exact same library. It does the exact same thing. Everybody has 3 little gnomish workers. Let me see if I can pick these guys up. 3 little gnomish workers that hang out. They have no special abilities. They're just workers. They go where you put them, and then they give you the ability of the location you put them in, including your personal location. In the advanced version of the game, everybody has 2 little workers that are gnomes, and then everybody gets 1 special worker, like this clockwork anatheum here gets this little clockwork automaton. All of the special workers have special abilities, asymmetric player powers in this game. What's great about this is 2 things. 1, you don't have to play with the asymmetric player powers if you don't want to. You can play the basic version of the game. I highly recommend that you do this if you're doing a learning game. First of all, it's 1 less thing to think about. The asymmetric player powers really mix things up. And it's also a really great way to deal with everything else and get it all digested, understand what all the rooms do, or all the locations do, understand how all the cards and shelving and everything works, before you start throwing monkey wrenches in that are exceptions to the rules. The thing that I love about this implementation of unique player powers, first of all, is that the implementation gives you 1 worker with a special ability. Not all of your workers have a special ability. Not you have 1 blanket special ability that exists for your library. You have 1 worker. So it's a, light seasoning of special ability. It's enough that you'll notice it. These guys have some off-the-wall bonkers type abilities. But it's only 1. So, if you already know how to play the game from playing the basic game, this isn't overwhelming to add. It just builds on what's before. This could have been an expansion, and Renegade decided to include it in the box. And I say it could have been an expansion because you only will ever use 4 basic libraries, because it plays up to 4 players. However, there are 12 libraries in the game. Okay? In the advanced version, you give each person 2 libraries, they choose the one they like, and pitch the other. So you won't even use all 12 of them in a 4-player game. You'll only use 8 of the 12. And then 4 of them will be in play, and the other 4 will be the ones that were discarded. So, you're only using 1/3 of these every game if you're playing the advanced rules. In addition to that, each and every one of them has their own unique little meeple. So you've got a clockwork automaton, you've got a witch, you've got a Sasquatch, you've got a snowman, you've got a goblin, you've got a mummy, you've got a bookworm, you've got a trash golem, you've got a ghost, you've got a little fire imp, you've got a wizard, and my favorite, the gelatinous cube, which is the only one that isn't wood. It's actually translucent plastic, which is a fantastic touch and didn't have to be done. This could just be a green cube of wood, but making it translucent with the little bubbles in it is genius. It's such a minor thing, but it's so cool. All 12 of those are included in the game. Like I said, it could have been an expansion. You could have gotten 12 library cards, these, and, all of that could have been in the expansion along with the solo rules, which we'll get to later. But they're just included in the box. And it's such a genius way to add additional content and additional replayability to a game without overcomplicating it, because you can play the base game without the special characters just fine. It's a fantastic game without any of the special characters. But adding the special characters adds that extra spice, adds that extra thing for people to chew on. It appeals more to heavier gamers. This is a medium-weight game, not a heavyweight game, but it has this extra element that you can play with that appeals to a heavier gamer, somebody who plays a lot more. But you also start with the gateway version, which has all 3 of the workers in it. And I don't want to imply that the basic version of the game is boring. It's not at all boring, and we're going to get to why here when I cover the next thing that is clever about this game. So, the next thing that is clever about this game are the locations. There are a ton of them. Okay? What's great is that in the first round of the game, only 4 of them are going to be on the board. You'll have 1 per player. So in a 2-player game, there's only 2. So you get to absorb all of the locations in tiny little bites as you play the game. So the Diviner's Hut is always in play. It's number 1, room number 1, so it always starts in play. So you'll know that it exists. It doesn't have a different back, which is unfortunate. It's one of the few graphic design missteps that I can think of in the game. But it's really easy to find. It's number 1, and it's in every game. I just usually stack it opposite all of the others so that it's easy to find. Next. There are 2 different types of rooms. So there are these instant rooms, like the Diviner's Hut and this Assistance Guild here, that are green bannered, that have the little lightning bolt. You place your worker on it, and it does exactly what it says on the tin. Then there are the delayed rooms, and there are 3 of those in the game. Let me see if I can find the third here quickly. There are 3 of them in the game, and all of them, you do whatever they say to do at the end of the round. So instead of you place your gnome and you immediately do it, you put your gnome on, and then at the end of the round you do things. And all of the places are a little bit descriptive as far as what they do, especially these ones. So like the local draft house. You place your worker here, and then at the end of the round you will have a face-up draft of cards. You'll put 2 cards equal to the number of players on the board, and then you'll draft them in order that you placed your worker here. It's very, very simple. Next, the garbage dump. You put a worker here. At the end of the round, you get to go through the discard pile and take a card. There's a little bit more to it. You have to name a specific category of book, and you can only take a card that has that category of book. But it's the garbage dump. You get to sift through the discard pile. It makes perfect sense. Finally, the auction house. 3 cards will be placed face up onto here, and then you will put your worker here as a bid of the number of cards you're willing to discard at the end of the round to take those 3 cards. So I could place my little dude here at 1, and that means that at the end of the round I'll pay 1 card to pick up these 3. If somebody outbids me, I get my worker back and can then replace it later on in the round, potentially outbidding them at 3, and then they could outbid me at 4. I could just then say, you know what, you're paying 3, I'm not going to bid 4, I don't need it that much, I'm not going to pay 4 cards to take 3 cards, so I'm going to go somewhere else with this worker. It's an auction inside of the game. All of the rooms make a lot of thematic sense. The other minor critique I would say is, as you can see, the room text is very tiny, and it is overlaid over the top of the gorgeous, gorgeous artwork, so it's kind of hard to read. That being said, everything is really pretty thematic as far as what it does, and pretty straightforward. Once you know what a room does, once you've played it once or even twice, you'll know what a room does, and you won't have to ask questions about it anymore. But that is one thing, that the text is very, very tiny and hard to read across a table. That said, only 4 of these will be out at the beginning of the game. So if I have these out, I'll place them in order. So we'll do 1, 3, 12, 15. They would be in this order. And all of them have their little placement spots. All of them have their little ability that triggers either green bannered when I place a worker, or red bannered at the end of the round. And then at the end of the round, the one with the lowest number becomes permanent. I already know what this one does. These 3 go away. I don't have to worry about them anymore. And 4 new ones come out, giving me 5 locations on the next round of the game, increasing my options. As I start to understand the game more, I'm given more options to exercise. And at the end of every round, a room becomes permanent. So you'll slowly accumulate rooms over the course of the game. And when they become permanent, they just fit right up here on this little board, and it'll slowly fill up over time. And I've only played 1 game of this where it spilled off of the board before the end game trigger happened. It's a super clever way to give players a whole bunch of options and a whole bunch of variety from game to game, because the rooms are going to come out in a different order every game. In a 3-player game, you're probably going to see every room. In a 2-player game, you won't, necessarily. In a 3-player game, you will. In a 4-player game, you may see some rooms twice, but the variability is going to change up everything. Like, if you get that room that allows you to rearrange your shelves late in the game, that's amazing. In another game, it may come out early in the game and may be totally ignored and be a non-factor. But it's so much easier to digest when you're only given 4 new pieces of information around to learn. And then only one of them sticks around, so you can kind of discard the others for later. It gives you a whole host of places that you can play that you're familiar with. Again, you still have your player board, you still have the diviner's hut, and then you have one around that accumulates. You know what this one does already. You learned that last round. The new ones are 4 pieces at most of information for you to digest, so the game kind of gives you the rules over time as you play it, instead of force-feeding them at you in the beginning of the game. Fantastic way to learn a game, and one of the reasons why the base game has just as much interest for me as the advanced version of the game. These change the game so much. The books that you care about change every game. So there's no... you're doing the same things. Yes, you're, taking cards and shelving books. But the books that you care about are different. The powers that you get access to are going to come at different times, or maybe not even at all. You can throw in special player powers on top of that. And then, we haven't even gotten to the library cards, which are going to, because they're a deck of cards, randomly come to you every game, so you're going to have to make do with whatever you tactically get in each game, as opposed to being able to just pick and choose exactly which cards you want to add to your library. There's so much variability in this box, and it's not overwhelming. One of my other favorite worker placement games is Argent the Consortium, by Level 99 Games and Trey Chambers, and it's a fantastic game. It's a game that you could probably play forever, because there's so much variability in it. However, it's a bear to teach people, because there's like 8 different resources, and a whole ton of rooms start on the table already, and there's just all this stuff that you have to digest before you can place your first worker. And all of your individual workers have player powers, and you draft them at the beginning of the game. This is a lighter, more accessible version of that kind of variability. I love Argent. I'm not getting rid of it anytime soon. It's one of my favorite games of all time. But Argent is not something I'm going to bring out to play with just anyone. Like, that's for people who know what they're getting into. Ex Libris, I think I could bring out with gamers who are relatively new to the hobby, and the small amounts of things that they have to digest over time make it accessible enough for them to pick up what's a pretty medium weight game in small chunks. They don't have to eat the elephant all at once. They can eat it in tiny bites, and that's much more successful. And we can play the basic game. And once, me and all my Argent-loving buddies get together and sit down, we can play with all the variable player powers and throw in all the bells and whistles, and it's, a grand old time. So it kind of grows with you as you play. And I love games that grow with you, that have things that reveal more depth. I'm an expansion junkie, as evidenced by all of the Sentinels of the Multiverse, all of the Netrunner. I love games with expansions. Summoner Wars is over here. I have all of the Orleans expansions sitting here. So, point made, I really love expansions. I love things that I can add to a game later on to breathe new life into it, so that there's a slightly new system or a new way to interact with an old system. And this game has it in the box, which is something that I absolutely love. This game doesn't ever need an expansion. I wouldn't mind if they created one, but I don't think it ever needs an expansion, because it has enough differences in it to keep you playing for an indefinite amount of time. The last thing that I wanted to bring up about how clever this game is, because I think at this point, if you don't think it's clever, then I'm not ever going to sell you on how clever it is. But one of the most clever things in the game are the library cards. And it's pretty good, because there are a lot of them. Like, there's a absolute truckload of these in the game. 2 full decks worth. They're divided up amongst letters, as you can see up here at the top. They're divided amongst letters, and as I said with the player boards, each letter has a certain number of cards that are in it, and then it tells you which one this is. So this is R4 of 6. There are 6 R cards, and this is the 4th one. But all of the information you need on these cards is at the top. All of the lovely book illustrations and the silly titles, which are all completely unique and hilarious, aren't needed to play the game. All you need is this little strip at the top that tells you the letter, how many are in that letter, where this one falls inside of that letter, alphabetizing wise, and then the icons of the books that are on it. So as you can see, there are 3 black icons and 1 green icon. There are 3 black books and 1 green book. All of the icons match. So all you need is this little top strip to determine what it is you need to do with this. This makes the mechanics very digestible. It's completely iconized. Obviously, you have to know a little bit about the library, or you have to know a little bit about alphabetization. You have to know a little bit about the English alphabet to play the game. You don't have to know how to spell. You don't have to know how to sing the alphabet song. It's on the player board. All of these can just be considered characters. You just have to put them in the right order. It's really that simple. You don't have to be able to read the titles to play the game. Reading the titles is fantastic. It gives you something to do between turns. It's really cool at the end to look at your library and see what books you've accumulated. But all the mechanical stuff is very discreet and tiny on the cards, which makes it really easy to hold in your hand and look at all the information you need. Makes it really easy to evaluate each card as you're looking at it, because that's all you need to look at. And then on top of that, it makes for some very, very pretty shelves. Ignore any bad alphabetization that happens, but makes for some very pretty shelves, as all the books are on shelves sitting next to each other. And even the back of the card, like say you don't alphabetize something correctly, even the back of the card looks like bookshelf and doesn't interrupt the flow of the game. There was so much thought put into every component in this game. It's so clever in what it does, and the graphic design that it uses to get more out of the components that it has. And I said that the library cards were the last thing, but there's really one more thing that I have to include. And this is your scoreboard. It's dry erase. It comes with a dry erase marker. No pad of paper where you use up all the sheets of paper and then are recording on scratch paper. Like, it's a dry erase board that forever will let you write on it and erase it and write on it and erase it. And it's very clever in how it's laid out. It gives you the option of writing each player's name, and then it has all the categories. You count up all of the categories. Counting is really easy. Everybody can do that. So you count up all the categories and list them here, and then you score based on the criteria that were on the main board. And you only reference the numbers that are up here. Nobody has to count again. You don't have to, when you're looking at each reference point, go, how many black books did I have again? Oh, I already wrote that down up here. I don't need to even bother thinking about it again. And then you just tally everything up at the bottom, and it's nice and clean, and it makes for a really good picture if you're into taking pictures of scores at the end of a game. And they didn't just stop there. The other side is a single-player scenario, so you can play single-player if you want. This also could have been expansion material. Single player, the alternate player powers, the extra meeples. There's plenty that that's in this box that could have gone into an expansion, and they put it in the base game, and it's phenomenal that they did. But yeah, dry erase board for scoring. And it looks like a little checklist. Like, it says even at the top, only to be filled out by the mayor's officially appointed library inspector. Yeah, it's fantastic. Like, theming down to the appearance of it, like the score sheet on the little clipboard that the inspector's filling out as they check out your library. It's a really clever game. It's so well done. The design is great. The implementation is great. There are a few little nitpicks, like the diviner's hut not having a different back, or the text on the rooms being too small to read from across the table. But compared to some of the complaints I have with other games, this is so minor that it's not even really relevant. Like, this is a game that helps you play it every step of the way, and games that are like that are an absolute treat to play and an absolute treat to own. Special shout out for the rulebook. Every room and every library has clarifications in here, so even if you aren't able to decipher what they do based on the text that's on them, it's in here. Even if you are, like, one of the rooms is literally just take one of the books off of this room and shelve it, which is about as clear dialogue as you can get. It has a clarification in the rule book. Not that it's confusing, just that, like, they took the time to put everything in there just so they left no stone unturned. I've run into a couple of questions about how some things work, but they're really intuitive answers, and the designer is really, really responsive on Board Game Geek. Adam has been fantastic, and also on Twitter, answering rules questions that are a little bit ambiguous that come up when some of the special player powers interact. But overall, it's a fantastic production, it's a fantastic rule book, it's a fantastic game, and everybody involved should be very, very proud of themselves. This game is my game of Gen Con for all of these reasons and so many others. If you listened to another 35 minutes of me talking about it, thank you. I really, really enjoy it, and can't wait for everybody else to get to experience it. This is a game that's going to be staying in my collection forever, and will probably creep its way up into my top 10 very, very quickly. The more I play it, the more I love it, and yeah, Ex Libris, everybody. I promise I won't be releasing an Ex Libris video every week from here on out. This will be the last big one, but people requested it, so I figured I might as well do it, and it's Vlogust, so let's get it out of the way. Anyway, I've talked long enough. Thanks Adam, thanks Renegade, thanks Jackie, thanks Dustin, thanks everybody involved in this game. And thank you guys for watching to the end of the video. I'm Bearded Rogue, and I'm signing out.